Tarkov Omega Rats rejoice. There's a party in my bush, and all the Wookiees are invited. Who writes this? Why such jubilation, you ask? Well, I believe I've found a POSTFX setting to make those NVGs a little less eye-rapey and a little more functional at longer ranges. These settings are good enough that I was able to get a few Shooter-Born in Heaven kills at night pretty easily while testing it on 1080p, and it's probably even better on 1440. Considering the advantages offered from running at night for getting tasks done and diminishing player scav visual acuity, this is pretty good news. Anyway, before we get into it, I just wanted to say we're getting closer to our 500 sub goal every video, and when we get there, we'll be making another donation, this time to the Arizona Humane Society, which is another local animal shelter. So, keep those likes, subs, and shares coming. If you have any questions on the video, don't hesitate to ask in the comments or go to my Discord in the description below. We've got a pretty friendly community that'll try to help you out. As you're probably aware, if you've done any night raiding in Tarkov at all, the NVG tends to wash out anything past a certain distance, and seeing silhouettes or really anything small is pretty difficult at those ranges, especially with what one would consider a normal POSTFX setting. To negate that washout effect, we had to find a way to create more contrast between light and dark objects. We found after some testing, the easiest way to do this was to reduce your brightness setting in the POSTFX to -100. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it works. I will run through each of the goggles and show you what they look like with a normal POSTFX setting, no POSTFX, and then again what they look like with our adjusted POSTFX. We've used the scavs of the power station to illustrate what a live target would look like in the distance to help distinguish which setting is better. To fine-tune it, I would also recommend adjusting your adaptive sharpening setting to your preference. I recommend having it above 50 for the NVGs. For the record, I could not for the life of me get Tarkov Weather to cooperate while getting this footage, so the in-game video you're going to see is a little foggy. You should get a little better clarity when you're doing your own testing and application. As you can see, the image is pretty bright with what one would consider a normal or functional daytime POSTFX setting. This is pretty much unusable in my opinion. There's actually a scav walking in front of that car down there and you can barely see him. The guy on the left, if he didn't have a flashlight, I probably wouldn't know he was there until he started moving. It doesn't get much better when you turn the POSTFX off. The image becomes less abrasive, but things are still pretty washed out at a distance. There's minimal detail on the structures and it's difficult to pick up movement. Now, here we are with the recommended settings, and there's a pretty significant difference in the overall quality of the image, with more detail being discernible at range, and the dimmer picture helps the viewer not want to gouge out their eyes. Simultaneously, this creates enough color to make contrasting shades detectable, so that means that the small objects which tend to be in motion become a little bit more clear because they contrast more with their background and create a better silhouette. These differences appear to be just as pronounced with all of the other goggles, except for maybe the Armacite goggles. We'll quickly run through them now. The PVS monocle is a great set of NVG. They seem to offer the best clarity and depth of the cheaper NVGs, but of course the trade-off is losing about 50% of your field of vision. This doesn't really bother me a whole lot if I'm going to be sitting stationary, not be hyper-mobile through the raid, but if you intend on assaulting and or traveling extensively, be sure to keep your head on a swivel. Now here we have the PNV-10. These are pretty much the worst NVG in the game, but they're also the cheapest. My personal preference is to run the monocle over these, but changing the POSTFX settings do make the PNV-10 a little bit more tolerable. You just can't expect a quality image at any distance with any setting, really. But they're dirt cheap, so it's hard to argue. As you can see here with the Armacite NVG, it has a decent picture from the start, and switching between the POSTFX settings doesn't seem to do a whole lot. The picture's still a little washed out without POSTFX on at all, but there's not a huge difference. These are actually pretty good NVG in general, and they come at the expense of having to forego any head protection. Well, that's about it. Hopefully tweaking these settings allows you to get some tasks done a little bit more easily in night raids and not attract as much attention. That's all for today. Make sure you subscribe to see our next video, which is going to be on what I consider to be the best gun in the game with regards to the optimal mix of cost effectiveness and lethality. Best of luck to you out there in the Tarkov wilderness.